ad-lib about some of the things that I wish I knew when I was 21. I hope you enjoy, and I hope some of it's practical and executable and actionable enough that it has an impact on your life. And you don't have to be 21. You could be 31, 41, 51, whatever. Some of this stuff you might already know, and some of it might be kind of an epiphany for you. But I hope it helps. So kick back, relax, and here are the 22 things I wish I knew when I was 21. Number one is find a professional mentor and find him or her early. I always thought mentorship, apprenticeship, that was kind of an olden days blacksmith kind of thing. You know, you learned a trade, and it certainly is that, but there are people out there, entrepreneurs, successful business people, that really enjoy helping young people, really enjoy helping people in general, serving others. And many of them have had their own successes, and they've made their own mistakes, and they've had mentors of their own. And so one of the things that I highly recommend you do, particularly when you're young, is seek out the guidance of someone who's already extremely successful at exactly what it is that you want to do, and attach yourself to him or her. And what these types of people are looking for is energy, effort, integrity, and enthusiasm from you in return for their wisdom. Some of these are paid, and some of these are just labors of love. And you probably want to seek out both. But you can plagiarize from a good mentor. A good mentor will give you practical things to do and take you from point A to point B much faster with much less pain than you might otherwise be able to do on your own. So it's not just about education, it's not just about experience, but if you can grab onto the coattails of someone who's already knocked the cover off the ball doing what you want to do, your professional life will be expedited, it'll be a lot more fun, it'll be a lot quicker, and it'll make you a lot more money earlier on. My first mentor actually paid me 6 figures to help him build a business that he then sold a couple of years later for a few $1 million, and he gave me a big fat check. So that post-doctoral education wasn't just free. It made me a ton of money, and man, I probably got 10 years of experience compressed into 2. So find a good mentor. Number 2 is, selling is not a 4-letter word. Selling is not a sleazy thing. It doesn't have to be, I should say. And I think because, kind of like lawyers, they get bad reputation, salespeople do, because a lot of them do the job very poorly. A lot of them just talk. They don't listen. They have scripts. They have quotas. They have to meet numbers. They're paid on a commission basis, so unless you buy something, they go hungry. So it's easy to understand why they might be more aggressive than they should, or more pushy than they should, or a little more sleazy than they need to be. But think of selling like this, and everyone should learn how to sell, whether you're going into a sales job or not. Selling is persuasion. Selling will enable you to get people to do things that they might not otherwise do if you just do the job properly. And that is, very simply, finding someone who's already predisposed to be interested in what you're doing, and then just educating them as to why they should purchase from you versus someone else. So it's really about education, the definition of your client, the quality of your product and service, and the marketing, the messaging around, the branding around, the advertising around, whatever it is that you're offering. But if you have to close people, then you've missed somewhere early on in the process. Selling is not a 4-letter word. Learn how to sell early. Number 3, and I suppose you don't learn this until you actually have children of your own, but your children will grow up a lot faster than you think they will. I joke with people now when I see them with young kids and I engage them in conversation, and this isn't just professional, this is personal as well, is take a lot of pictures because they'll be 18 tomorrow. It happens in the blink of an eye. And you can work your ass off and you can be successful, but while you're doing that, try not to miss games, try not to miss recitals, try not to miss teacher meetings. You can't get that stuff back. And I have countless examples of friends and colleagues who regret that they made a ton of money at the expense of that. Those are not mutually exclusive. So don't lose sight of the fact while you're raising your children that you need to be there for them and for you. It happens fast. Number 4, travel early and often. When young people come to me, of course with the permission of their parents, because this is kind of a double-edged sword, and they ask me, should I go to college? Do I need a degree to get a job? And I've written a lot about this, and you can find it on all of my social media profiles because it's kind of a passion play. You don't need a college degree to get a job. And what I think everyone should do when they graduate from high school is get a few $100s in a backpack and get on a plane to another country, and then come back in a few months or a few years or not at all. But if you do come back, say a year later, you will now be ready to consume a college education. Doesn't mean you have to still go. And the quality of the education that you get today versus the cost of that education is so disparate that I think it's frankly a waste of time. And we could argue that point back and forth, but I don't believe college is necessary. My point in this particular little snippet is travel early and travel often. See the world. There's a lot of other stuff out there, and there are a lot of other types of people and cultures and ways to do things. Blow your mind open and then come back. Number 5, your career is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And along the way, you will have plenty of opportunities to fail, plenty of opportunities to succeed. You'll get punched in the face, you get kicked in the midsection, you'll fall down. It's going to be about getting back up, and it's going to be about showing up every day. It's not going to be it's the tortoise and the hare thing. I mean, it's a classic fable for a reason. You sprint forever and you run out of gas early and you pass out and die. You show up every day and chip away at it. Drip, drip, drop, drop, a little bit at a time. Show up every day, all day, over and over. No sick days, no vacation days. Give it your all. Lots of different ways to look at that, but the point is, it's not getting somewhere faster than the next guy. It's never giving up. And you'll find that the whole thing, professionally and personally, is not about the destination. There is no destination. The whole thing's about the journey. So stay present in the journey every day and show up every day. That is an almost irreplaceable skill. Number 6, leadership is about people, not about power. It's not about control. Leadership's about finding the right people, engaging them, empowering them, and frankly, giving them enough rope to hang themselves, and then leading them so they don't. A lot of people think leadership's about control, getting people to do things. And it is getting people to do things, but not by controlling them. It's by empowering them and engaging them. Don't lose sight of that. I've worked for some control freaks. I've worked for some manipulators. And if you become a leader, you'll do so by example and by engagement and by treating people with respect. Empowering people is just as important. Don't micromanage people. Give them objectives, give them enough direction to start moving, and then trust that they'll know what to do. You can always correct them later, but if you control them early, they'll never blossom. You'll always have to control them and micromanage them, and there's no growth there. And it's a pretty nasty way to do business. Leadership is about people. Number 7, and I've learned both of these. When you're younger, you need to act older, and when you're older, you need to act younger. And let me explain what I mean by that. When you're younger, I remember the first time I went on a sales call for an insurance company in Chicago when I graduated from college. And the first person I met, this old dude that ran this company, and he was 70-something, and that was really old to me at the time, not so much anymore. And I was with a senior sales rep, and I introduced myself, and I called him Mr. So-and-so. And after that sales call was over, my sales leader pulled me over. He goes, "Don't ever do that again." I said, "What?" He said, "You called him Mr." I said, "Well, that's the way I was raised, to be polite, to be respectful of my elders." And he said, "That's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. This is business. As soon as you call someone Mr., you've put him on a pedestal, and now you're subservient to him, even if it's only subconscious or unconscious for that matter. Don't ever call someone Mr. So you have to kind of fake your confidence when you're young. You have to bring a level of maturity and a level of expertise that you may not even actually feel, but you can get that with practice and information. And conversely, when you get older, the knock on old people like me is that we don't bring enough energy, right? Or we're set in our ways. So I think when you're older, you need to kind of reverse that effect and say, well, how can I make sure that I'm bringing energy? That's diet, exercise, mindfulness, breathing, yoga, whatever it is, make sure you're bringing additional energy, that you appear to be youthful and actually are youthful. And then secondarily, you have to listen actively. The more and more you get older and more experience that you have to remain open to other ways of thinking and other ways of doing things. So it's kind of a conflict, if you will. But when you're older, focus on how to act younger. And when you're younger, focus on how to act older. Number 8 is a good segue from number 7, and that is learn to listen actively. And I want to explain what that means, because particularly if you're gregarious, talkative, in sales, our tendency is to talk a lot. I like to talk a lot. I like to be heard. I guess most of us do. Active listening is really the idea of asking questions that elicit or solicit layered answers, extra information, nuance, right? In other words, in my business, we ask for referrals. I'm a recruiter. At the end of helping someone, you say, who else do you know? And that's how you say it. Do you know anyone else? One can say yes or no to that question, and you get no additional information. The conversation is over. Who else do you know presumes that they know other people, and that opens up a conversation of where they might hang out, or how big their group is, or other places they've worked, or what are their social circles, or the groups that they belong to, all those things. If you ask, who else do you know, the presumption is they know someone. If you ask, do you know someone else, then yes, no, just puts you out of business. And then the other part of active listening is be quiet and listen and watch. And what you'll get is things that are being intended but not actually said. You'll hear the words, but you'll hear a tone, or you'll hear an inflection, or you'll see some body language, or you'll hear pauses or emphasis. All these things are the nuance of active listening. The final thing you do with active listening is you make the person that you're speaking with feel like he or she is the only other person on the face of the earth. And that is such an engaging thing. It's such a charming and charismatic thing to do that it will blow up your relationships and more deeply engage them. And if you want to know more about active listening, I write a lot about it, I talk a lot about it, but just Google it and get other people's opinions as well. That is a tremendously valuable skill, and the earlier on in life that you learn that, the more productive and successful you'll be. Number 9, I don't care what anybody tells you, you do not ever have to work for an asshole, okay? And I have worked for assholes, so let me rephrase that. You never have to work for an asshole after you identify that this person is an asshole and you call them on it. You either leave or you reframe that relationship. And that's how I started out with my mentor. So this guy brings me in to help him open up a company, and I asked him, what does that mean, opening up a company? And he explained it to me. Long story short, we've become very successful. He's taught me a ton. I'm now a sales manager, and I have a whole office full of people. And he walks out on the sales floor one day, and he just starts freaking yelling at me. I don't even remember why he was yelling, but he was screaming. He was debasing, he was berating me, he was embarrassing me, he was disrespecting me. And I just got like a trigger went off in me because of the way I was raised maybe, or who I am, hopefully. And I said, can I talk to you in private? And he said, sure. And I brought him into his office and I closed the door and I looked at him, and I'm paraphrasing because this was 25 years ago. And I said, look, I respect the fact that you're my boss. I acknowledge the fact that you pay me. I love this job with the exception of that little event out on the sales floor, and I really want to keep this job. I need this job. But I have to tell you, with all due respect, if you ever berate me in public like that, particularly in front of people that you want me to lead, I am walking out the frickin' door. I won't tolerate that. And I tell you, right then and there, I either lost my job or I gained his confidence. And I'm not sure, because I never asked him, but he was either reacting to me standing up for him and didn't want to lose me because he saw my potential, or he was testing me and it was deliberate. I tend to think it was a little bit of both because I know this guy pretty well. And he is probably still an asshole today, but he never treated me like an asshole again. So when I say you don't have to work for an asshole, you don't, because there's nothing more important than your self-respect. And if you give that away, particularly early, it's an uphill battle from there. Don't ever think that you have to stay working for an asshole. Number 10, employees are people too. What I mean by that is it's almost never about you. And there's so many areas of my professional career as well as my personal life where I've learned this over and over and over and over again. Some of the things that we relearn, it feels like we're being ignorant and why did I have to make that mistake again? But this is a big one. When you encounter someone and you've given them no reason to be mean to you or disrespectful to you or arrogant to you or nasty, and they are one of those things, I can promise you it is almost never about you. Now, 10% of those people are just pricks. They're just nasty people. They're just evil or bad or angry and whatever. You're not going to change them. But you will have figured that out very early in your encounter, very early in the relationship, and you can run away and save yourself a lot of time and a lot of frustration. The other 90% of those people have something going on in their personal lives that is making them sad or making them angry and making them frustrated, and you just walked into their life at that point in time, and it doesn't matter what you say or who you are, they're going to treat you poorly. And this is what you do to both of these, the 90% and the 10%, to validate which group they belong in. Have I given you, I apologize, have I given you any reason at all to treat me with the level of kind of angst or animosity that you're treating me? I don't understand what I may have done or said to make you so upset with me. And the 90% will inevitably say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, somebody just died, or I just got into an accident, or I just lost that, something bad happened to them. And what happens there is magical. You separate the 10% from the other 90%, and the other 90% now almost immediately feel an obligation to apologize, and thereby giving you the right to start building a relationship based on something that's very personal. Like you didn't even know this person before this conversation opened up. And I used to have new sales reps go, you really want me to say that? I'd be like, I don't want you to say that. You must say that. It's part of your survival in the business of selling, or business in general, is you cannot accept disrespect from someone unless you call them on it and give them the opportunity to talk about it. So that's a really nuanced kind of thing, but it's also a very simple kind of thing. Don't ever let someone treat you disrespectfully or with anger or meanness without calling on it. Use your own voice, get your own script, use your own words, be your own person. But that right there is magical. Number 11 is start networking and capturing referrals and recommendations and the contact information and notes of the people that you encounter early on, right away, in school, as a matter of fact. This could start with coaches, teachers, mentors of any kind. As soon as you get into the business world, get some sort of a database. It could be LinkedIn or HubSpot, or it could be an Excel spreadsheet, and start to capture the names of people that want to help you, have influenced you, that you've met. If you think that you can help someone else down the road and that likely they can help you, you have an obligation early on in your life to capture that information and make sure that you have a mechanism to capture the notes of the discussion so you have something in common to talk about the next time you call them back, and some sort of trigger, some sort of like calendar reminder or alarm. And these tools are everywhere and they're free, so that you know, based on that discussion, when it's most appropriate for you to follow up next. If you do that from the time you're 17, or if you do that from the time you're 21, for the rest of your life, every single one of those people will both make your life easier, more pleasant, more enjoyable, and will drive more income into your bank account. Guaranteed. We start that process informally when we're young. We don't capture that information. We move, we get into a different business, and we forget those people. And some of those people should be our best friends today, and certainly our business partners, our colleagues, our investors. They sit on our board of directors. They might be our boss. Don't lose track of the people that you meet early on. And for people that are older, it's never too late to start. Network early, network often, and capture that information with the ability to repurpose it. Number 12, this one's pretty simple but very important, and it's my mentor that shared this with me as well. Get credit when you can qualify for credit. Don't wait until you need credit. And here's what I mean by that. As you accumulate a credit score, a credit rating, you use credit cards, and I'm not talking about credit cards here. I'm talking about credit in the form of a credit line. a personal credit line, a professional credit line, a business credit line, a home equity line. These are, you've accumulated some collateral, cars, homes, a business of a certain value, assets of some kind, collateral. These are things that are worth something. And you go to a bank or any lending institution and you say, I would like a line of credit against this collateral. And they will give you $20,000, $50,000, $200,000. And these lines of credit and home equity lines, you get them. So now I have access to $200,000, say, at 4%. The interest rates are always phenomenally low. But I don't pay anything until I use that. But that's my 200 grand in the bank in case I need it later to pay off debts, to open up a business, to do some repairs on the house. If that sits there and you never use it, it will never cost you anything. But if you wait 5 or 10 years when you need it because you have no collateral, or you've lost something, or your business has gone in the tank, and you go to the bank and say, hey, remember me? I have no collateral, but you still have that 200 grand? They won't give it to you. So again, when you don't need it is when you should get it. And again, it's not a credit card I'm talking about, it's a line of credit. You have access to a certain amount of money based on your collateral at a very low interest rate, and you put that aside, and then when you need it, you have it. Trust me, if you do that, it'll come in handy at some point in your life. Number 13 is accept that learning and figuring things out are both your responsibility. Again, I've hired a lot of people. With the tools and online information that you have access to at the punch of a button right now, you ought to be able to learn anything and you ought to be able to figure anything out. Okay? The only rationale for not being able to figure something out or learn something is you're just not that bright, or you lack initiative, which is lazy. So if you find yourself at the beginning of your career saying, well, I need a little bit more direction, or exactly what did you mean by that, or I just want more clarity, these are kind of excuses. You're setting the table for a low expectation. When I hire somebody, I want to tell them, this is what I want you to do today. This is the direction you need to do it. Good luck. Come back to me at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, I want that person to come back and I want to see evidence that they've investigated things that are new to them, that they've at least tried to figure things out that they came upon that were challenges during the course of that day. That's how you accelerate your learning process. And frankly, if you're low in intellect and lacking initiative, or even one or the other, I'd actually take someone low in intellect that had high initiative over someone high in intellect with low initiative. Because initiative, you can't teach that, right? Intellect, you can max that out, certainly, but you can find a place for someone with high integrity and high initiative. So take responsibility for learning and take responsibility for figuring things out. Don't wait for someone to tell you what to do. Don't wait for someone to give you instructions. And frankly, if you have to make decisions on limited information or limited experience, do it. Ask for permission later. Number 14, you will never be ready. Okay? Never. When I started my first company after I left the guidance of my mentor, so I started that company, but he funded it. So when I started my first company with my own funds, my own partner, I was building $1 million home, and my wife at the time was 8 months pregnant with our third child. The other two were still kids. And the builder that was building my home took off with $75,000 of my money before he was done or finished building the home. And so I had to chase him down, liens on the house. It was a nightmare. Was I ready? Not based on that story, but the business became successful and I was ready. So don't let the fact that there's something else that you could do, or you don't feel ready, or you're a little bit scared or reticent to do this or do that, you're never going to be ready. Bad things always happen at a bad time, and good things in hindsight always happen at a good time. But the reality is good things happen at bad times because you just pull the trigger. You just push the button. You ship. You open the door. You turn on the lights, whatever it means. Don't wait around. I think the rule of thumb I've heard over the years that is most accurate to me is if you're feeling like you're about 80 or 90% ready, just go, jump in, dive in, open the door, turn on the lights, flip the switch, ship the product, whatever that means to you. Don't wait until you're ready, because you never will be. Number 15 is kind of one of my favorites. I use it all the time. I use it in airports. I use it when I'm dealing with customer service. I use it all the time. In my business, human resources people say function as kind of gatekeepers. So when you're a recruiter and you approach a new client, people will all tell you, if you get, and I'm selling, say, IT services, so I want to talk to the software engineering manager or the director of IT or a senior level executive who can make decisions and owns a budget, is empowered to make the decisions that impact my success, my life. And he or she will inevitably say, are you on the list? Or you have to do it this way, or you have to talk to HR, or you have to talk to procurement. We all have our gatekeepers. We all have people that are not necessarily there to facilitate what we do. They're there to make sure we do everything properly. And I see the value in that, but it's also very annoying. And my point in this is, don't do things just because someone says to you, this is how everyone else does them, this is the way you have to do them, or this is the way we've always done things. And you'll hear that over and over, and that's a weakness in people. That's a fear, it's an insecurity in my mind. So when I go to the customer service counter at an airport and they say, we can't get you on that flight, I say, what it seems like you're telling me is you won't even try to get me on that flight. Can I talk to a manager? And there's a bit of sarcasm there, but human resources people will say to me, everyone else charges 15%, why should I pay you 25? And there's that little cartoon bubble over my head that I don't actually say, it's what I feel is, yeah, 15%, and you're still talking to me? How's that working out for you? So it's like, people will say these things, and we're all kind of, we can be like sheep, lemmings jumping off a cliff. Don't get caught in that. Don't do things because someone else said you should, or you're supposed to, or you have to. Question that. Question that early on. But if you do question it, you have to question it in such a fashion that you're like, I think there's a better way. Like in that fee example, I would say, let's talk about value. How many resumes do you typically get before you decide to interview someone? Most people don't even know. But if that number is 15 or 25, what if my number's 2? Isn't that worth more? Isn't that worth your time? If we can expedite the hiring process of a critically skilled employee so that he or she is performing this particular valuable task sooner, that might be worth millions. And you and I are bickering over $2,000, $5,000? Put these things in context. Don't accept people who tell you you have to do it this way because, unless that way makes perfect sense and fits right into your business model, which is very unlikely. Question authority. Question the status quo. Number 16, I think you should insist early on and forever on doing business and working with people that you consider friends, that you like, that you enjoy spending time with. Because I got to tell you, I didn't know this when I was 21, but you spend a lot of time with the people that you work with. You spend a lot of time with your clients. I don't know if it's playing golf or having cocktails or going to parties or staying after work to collaborate on projects. You go to lunch together, you have coffee together, you're walking by each other and having conversations about each other's families and kids. You're talking about the pictures that are on their desk. It's quite conceivable that early on in your career, the part that coincides with beginning to have kids in particular, but the whole time, you spend more time at work than you do at home. And so why would you put yourself in a situation where you had to work with people that you didn't like, or that you hated, or that just drove you insane? That will eat away at you. When you get in a car and you drive to work and you start thinking about the people that you have to work with that you don't even like, that'll drive you insane. It corrodes your soul. Don't deny yourself the opportunity to work with people that you enjoy. There will be exceptions to that. It's not a perfect science, but I think the higher you raise that bar, the happier and more productive you will be. Number 17, I don't mean to get on a high horse here, but never violate your moral code, your set of ethics for a win at work, to make money at work, to win a project or get a promotion or any of those things. It's self-serving. People will tempt you. They will say to you, oh, just don't look that way, or let's just sign that, or no one's going to find out, or a litany of different ways that someone can say that. But what they're saying is, can I crack your moral surface, your moral armor, and just kind of sneak in there and make you a little bit bad so we can win this project? Because this is what's happening. You say yes to that, and all of a sudden you're on this real slippery slope to evil, certainly at least bad guy. And it'll be so tempting, and the chances are that the person that's asking you to do that, or maybe even telling you to do that, is a person of authority. All they're doing is opening their character up to you. All they're doing is making you aware of what kind of person they are. You may lose money in the short term, you may lose opportunity, you may lose a job, you may lose a promotion. That pales in comparison to spending the rest of your life slinking down into Dante's Inferno, okay? It starts really, really small, and it seems innocuous. It seems like, oh, this is no big deal. For that, I'll do that. Don't do it, ever. Number 18 is kind of a cliche, right? Failure is the best way to learn, and when you take risks, which you have to enjoy your life, you'll fail. I guarantee you I've failed 100 times more than I've succeeded. Because it's like the stock market. If you have 10 stocks and 9 of them or 6 of them lose money, 3 of them stay even, and 1 of them blows up, your portfolio is positive, right? You don't need all 10. That's a diverse profile. That's a diverse portfolio, if you will. Same thing is true with life and work. Take risks. Now, mitigate them with research, with work, with collaboration, with the opinions of others, with feedback and surveys, however you can mitigate those risks. But don't wait until you're ready, remember that. Take risks. If you take risks and you fail, you will learn something inevitably valuable for the rest of your life. And if you take no risks, you'll just lead a boring life. So don't be scared of failure. Don't risk your life necessarily, unless you want to. I mean, mountain climbers do it, parachute jumpers do it, and people do it all the time. But mitigate your risk to the extent that you can. Pull the trigger when you're 80% ready. And if you fail and you fall down, just get back up. Don't not risk again. Risk forever. Number 19, again, goes back to the way that I like to train my employees, and that is, don't be a problem, be a problem solver. You'll be faced with all kinds of problems in your life and in your career. The first thing that you need to do is start to try and figure out how to solve the problem, okay? Some people complain, some people blame others. You're going to solve the problem. And having said that, you don't need to even solve the problem. If I have an employee that I give a task to, and that employee goes off to do that task and comes back having encountered a problem, I only have one expectation, that he or she comes back with a clear outline of what they did to try and solve the problem, and out of the possible options that they uncovered, they recommend the one that they think is best. They don't have to solve the problem. All they have to do is give me the understanding that they tried and give me a recommended solution. Because if you do that, I can teach you what the right solution is in 5 minutes. I can teach you all kinds of things in 5 minutes. But if you immediately come back to me and say, I got a problem, now you're giving me a problem. And I already got problems. I don't need another one. So develop a solution-oriented mindset and try not to bring other people problems. Try to bring other people problems with research and suggested solutions. That is beneficial across any profession, across any industry, across any line of work. Don't be a problem, be a problem solver. Number 20 is, most really good things are hard. They're really hard, but they're also usually very simple. As I've said in other publications and other videos, I represented engineers my whole life, software engineers. These are problem solvers. These are people that take on very, very complicated problems. But even those problems, the good ones, the good software engineers, they break them down into very simple components, and then they take those simple components on one at a time, and then they integrate one into the next and build what looks like a complicated solution, but it's really a set of very simple solutions connected together. I think as human beings, we have a tendency to try and overcomplicate things. We do this in life, we do it with relationships, we do it with jobs, we do it with everything. And as a young person, if you can start out early and understand hard is okay, complicated is unnecessary. So the extent to which you can view life challenges and business challenges as difficult. That's okay. I can handle hard. I can get back up if somebody punches me in the face. But I think I might be overcomplicating this, and maybe there's a simpler way to look at this. Life will get a lot easier and business will get a lot more productive. Finally, number 21, the 21st thing that I wish I knew when I was 21 is do what you say you're going to do or say something else. I've told all three of my kids as they've embarked on their own businesses, and I've told many of my employees who went on to start their own companies, if you tell people you're going to do something and do it, you're automatically in the top 5% of whatever profession you are. Arguably, you're in the top 2%. How simple is that? So don't say things that you cannot fulfill. And frankly, one of my favorite answers to a question that I don't know is I don't know. It takes balls, it takes guts to say that in certain situations, but you're not exposing your vulnerability, you're exposing your integrity when you say you don't know. I know that because I have people do it with me all the time, and I have people not do it with me all the time. Don't be afraid to say I don't know, and don't promise people things you can't deliver. The old adage is over-deliver and under-promise. Maybe. Promise what you can do. Don't promise what you can't. Do what you say you're going to do, and if you don't know that you can, say you don't know and go figure it out. And if you do that, again, you'll be in the top 5% of whatever it is you do in life. So I hope these 21 things that I wish I knew from a career standpoint when I was 21 are beneficial. I think they're beneficial for everybody. I still make the mistake of forgetting some of them or all of them at certain points in my life because you need to be reminded. You need to be appreciative. You need to be grateful all the time, and sometimes that's challenging. And we forget things. We are in moments of weakness. We are in moments of challenge. So forgive yourself if you forget one of these things, but if you strive to understand them more deeply and you strive to do them more consistently, your world will get better, your job will get better, your life will get better, and you will have a tremendously positive impact on the people around you. You will essentially be serving others, which will bring you joy. So again, I hope that was helpful. My name is Mark Aylward, 7 Pillars Global, and come watch and consume more of my stuff. Talk to you soon.